This is the Long Haul Pedalcast with John McGavick and Steve Schools. Incredible stories of endurance coming from the prairies. Be inspired to create your own long haul journey. On this pedalcast, we talked to Manitoba cyclist Leah Kirchmann. Leah started out in the Kids of Mud and went on to compete as a professional cyclist at the Olympics, winning a world championship in the team time trial, and finishing on the podium on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. In part one today, Leah takes us through the roller coaster of her Olympic journey. In part two, Leah will talk about her challenges and dramatic successes in the team time trial, her Tour de France podiums, and her new career as a coach, including being director sportif for the only elite world championship road title Canada has ever won. Enjoy. Welcome everyone to the Long Haul Pedalcast. Today we have a extremely special guest, Leah Kirchmann, who has worn the pink jersey in the Giro d'Italia, raced in the Olympics, has world championship and national championship victories. So Leah, thank you for joining us on the Pedalcast and welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, great to have you. And we got my co-host, John McGavick.
Hello, good to have you on. Leah, thank you so much for making time.
So there is so much that we can talk about. You know, you're currently now have a coaching career and you're coaching a whole range of athletes, but you've had quite a racing career and there's so many aspects to it. So we're going to do this in parts, but I think as a first part, we want to get into your Olympic journey. And there's the ups and downs of that journey, and there's a lot that you can cover. But take us through trying to make it to the Olympics, and you might have to go back a few years from that. But just let's go through that.
Sure. Yeah, it's a big journey, and yeah, it started way back. I think in Manitoba when I first started cycling and found the sport. And I remember when I was a young rider, like you're always asked, like, what's your dream goal or like your ultimate goal? And of course you say the Olympics, because it's the biggest thing in the sport. But I think you might not truly think it's possible, but you say it anyways. And so it was always a goal from the start. And yeah, I think my approach to racing from when I was young and growing up was always just trying to be a little bit better. So I didn't necessarily have this clear pathway laid out of like, this is how I'm going to achieve my Olympic dream. But I just wanted to be a better cyclist and was always looking at whatever that next step was. So yeah, first it was like traveling outside the province and getting more race experience. And then it was maybe leaving the province, racing North America. Then it was getting that international experience. So that was sort of, yeah, my whole approach, I guess, to my athletic career was just being a little bit better and always looking at the next step. And then for Olympics, so the first like real opportunity I saw was the 2012 Olympics in London. And I think those like almost snuck up on me a bit because I was still quite young and developing early. Yeah, I was in my early 20s. I had made the full focus on roads a few years before, and it was starting to achieve success especially on the North American circuit. And then also had started doing some racing with Canada and Europe. And I was kind of in that 2012 year, I actually found myself like kind of in contention with the top Canadians going into those selections. But more coming in I wasn't coming in as like an established rider.
Right. You were an up and coming rider, but certainly not established like a Clara Hughes or someone like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the year, yeah, Clara was going for those Olympics.
Yes.
So side story, I thought that was so cool because Clara was really one of my like sporting heroes growing up, like being from Winnipeg. And then a few times that year, like, I got to be her roommate and her teammate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Cool.
So cool for me. It's like a young developing rider.
Right.
For which races?
I think at, Gatineau, I think I was her roommate. We raced Pan Am Championships when she won. And then the World Championships a couple years before in Copenhagen. So,
right. Yeah, she raced in 2011. That's at the World Championships. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she had done speed skating in 2010 at Vancouver Olympics, and then she was going for London. And yeah, you're both kind of going for that Olympic team, and you're
you're able to kind of learn from her as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I sort of found it's like during that 2012 year, like I was racing quite strong, and sort of like, yeah, I started to feel like, oh, I actually have a chance of I could make this team in the right circumstances. And yeah, especially like just the improvements I was finding, like racing in Europe, it's a big transition and hard to perform there, but it was starting to come together. And yeah, I had won a bunch of races in North America and kind of leading into that. So the selection period's always like those years, it was kind of the month before. And so say it was June and we're waiting for the selections. The race was going to be in July. And I found out at Nature Valley. I don't know if that's still happening.
Yeah, that's the Minneapolis race that used to have Nature Valley Grand Prix. Is that?
Yeah, so I kind of found out there like before one of the races, like I hadn't made the team. So I'm very disappointed. And I was the alternate. So I was I'd like to feel so close and not make it. And then I remember, maybe these are connected, I don't know. But then I started the race after that, and then I crashed in the race and I broke my collarbone.
Oh.
And so it's like a double whammy.
Oh
I
my.
didn't realize it broke for like, I still raced the last stages in pain before accepting that maybe I was injured.
Wow. So you get the phone call and it's like, just to let you know,
It was an email. It's not even a phone call.
So you just open up your email and it's like, you're not on the Olympic team. You're an alternate. You start the race. You break your collarbone. Like, in that moment, how are you feeling and processing all that? Like, but it's probably like in a bike race, right? Like there's just so much happening. Like you're thinking you're overloaded with all that's happening for the race, but you're trying to process that. Like just maybe take us through those moments.
No, I think it's hard to process those moments. Like, and I think every athlete will experience that, especially with, it's not unique that like selections can go either way. And then, you need to learn how to process it and just to accept it and then use it as motivation or information moving forward to the next opportunities. But for sure, it's very disappointing that moment. Yeah, it took me a while to like accept that I was injured. I think I even went out to nationals and then realized like, no, I really need to go get an X-ray. And then, on top of all that, this was really not a good time. My grandma passed away, so then I went back to Winnipeg. I'm like, oh man, I'm in this big hole. Nothing is going very well. It's very sad. But kind of after getting through that initial period, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this information, to become better. And I'm going to think about, I wasn't guaranteed a spot on this team. I still had a lot to improve on as a rider. And I was going to take that information and, become better from it. And I wanted there to be no question that I should make the team in 2016. I would just be one of the best Canadians. And, nobody wouldn't be like a questionable decision. My journey after that was really driven kind of exactly by that. So I really focused in on like, okay, I want to be the best teammate I can be. So like if I was either the leader or if I was in a support position, like I was 100% into being the best teammate possible. Like I was an asset to the team. And then I also focused in on like, okay, my strength was really my sprint at that time, but I know Canada cared a lot about time trialing and Olympic spots. Like it's a huge asset if you can race both the time trial and the road race because the team is it's not separate. Your road racing team has to come from your time trial spots.
Right. And you're limited in the number, Canada's limited in how many athletes they can send to the Olympics. So if they have an athlete that can do both the road race and the time trial well, they want to pick them over someone that might only can do one or the other reasonably well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And they see like time trial is like, it's a bit more of a bit more controllable or predictable for performance-wise. If you're a good time trialist, there's a good chance you can perform on that day. Versus, road racing can be totally chaotic.
Exactly.
Like we've been at big championships.
Right.
You won't achieve a medal, but less predictable when they're looking at.
It's a little more of a lottery. You might have a few tickets in the lottery, but there's still a lot of odds against you, no matter how good you are in a road race. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's when I was like, I'm gonna really focus in on time trialing and become good at that, and then climbing as well. That's a weakness. I need to try harder at it. So I spent tons of time on my time trial bike. Yeah, really like increased my power there. Thought about aerodynamics, all of that. And then yeah, it became quite good in a few years, and won my first national title was in 2014.
Yes. Yep.
I think it was the year I won all the national titles, which was a big surprise for me.
Like, yeah, that was a total shocker when you won the time trial, like, because you hadn't been that close to winning it, I think, before, or at least certainly a couple years before. That was almost, you couldn't imagine that, I think.
Yeah, no, like when I won, it was really a shock. And yeah, it made like progress over time. But it's like, yeah, maybe I'm finishing 30th and now 20th, maybe 5th the year before. And then, yeah, to actually win, I'm like, oh, wow, okay. That was the result of a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But it really started to like solidify that as actually a strength of mine was time trialing.
Yeah, and I think maybe just that goal that you had of trying to improve on all those dynamics. 2014 in national championships, you won all 3 races. So maybe like that's the moment where you can kind of see like you've become the complete rider and the best in Canada at every road discipline.
Yeah, true. That really exemplified that. That was quite a cool experience. Just actually, yeah, winning the sprints and the crit and the road race, winning that TT title, getting to wear the maple leaf the whole year afterwards. I won a lot of maple syrup because I was in Beauce.
Right.
So
Yeah. So you had your mind on that trying to make those improvements, and you've accomplished that, at 2 years into that next kind of 4-year cycle. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's good for people to recognize like that Olympic cycle is long. Like nothing's guaranteed, and every 4 years, that's a long time to work towards the next one. And a lot can happen. So yeah, I was really glad to experience that progress. And then, yeah, so the next couple of years, going to 2015, again, experiencing progress. I was still racing full time for Optum Pro Cycling, so based out of the States, but also racing in Europe. And with racing Europe, like it's just so different that it's a big challenge. But every time I went back there, I'd also get a little bit better and was super driven again to just like keep improving and achieve results there. But going to 2016, it was still like it was still there's a lot of strong riders at the time, and it was sort of like it wasn't clear, the Olympic team and the top spots like weren't totally clear who would be in contention for selection. And so that year I'm like, okay, I really need to make that final step, which is why I signed full time for a European team. And I'm like, if you want to be the best in the world, then you need to race the best all the time and be in that environment. So that's what drove my choice that year. And it was quite a big decision because it's making a big change like 6 months before the Olympics do. And they do the selections in the spring. So it was like all in the spring classics, everything like an Olympic year, it's high tension in the peloton. It's like every country is kind of going for those spots as well. So I joined a Dutch team. It's a team that's now Picnic Post-Hanel,
Right.
was Sunweb, kind of had different names throughout the years. Yeah, and joining them was intimidating, but they really helped kind of fill in some of those gaps for me, just on like just explaining how to race in Europe and actually being surrounded by teammates who understand the racing there and understand the peloton and how to move and the tactics. They know all the corners, they know all the climbs, like just being like having their help and direction and mentorship was kind of like a huge difference maker for going into that 2016 year for me. And
how is the team, as far as you have these Olympic goals, but the team is a pro team. They've got sponsorship. They've got goals. They're a whole program that's trying to survive in the World Tour and get results in the World Tour. So how did that kind of blend? As far as you've got all these different goals, but aside from the team,
they might respect your Olympic goals, but they have bigger goals or other goals.
It's a really good point, because this is super common in cycling, because for the pro teams, like the Olympics actually isn't that big for most of them. They care about the pro races, and they're also the ones paying you. So kind of need to work towards the team goals most importantly. And then I think it takes just working together with the team and like good communication and setting expectations, so that you can go after both goals, both team and your individual goals. So in this case, I think it worked well because, of course, I needed results to make the Olympic team, and the team wanted results because they're a pro team. That's what they're striving for.
Okay. So there was some common goals then. Like you're trying to get results, and that if you have a certain level in the World Tour, that can get you on the Olympic team. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly
Sure.
how the selection was written that year, but I think in general, like results, if they're in World Tour races or in Europe, like those results are kind of held in the highest regard because you are doing the hardest events.
Yeah.
So if you can perform there, like that gives you a good chance
Okay.
at making the team. And yeah, especially if they're events that maybe like are similar to the demands of an Olympic course. That's something unique in cycling as well, where maybe it could be a really hilly, demanding Olympic course where maybe you wouldn't send like a pure sprinter. That doesn't make sense.
Yes, right. Yeah. Which Rio Olympics had some big climbs in it.
Yeah, that was a pretty challenging course. Exactly. So you need to show that you're a rider that makes sense to send to like that.
Yeah.
So that spring, it was like a really crazy spring, super high stress. But yeah, in this new team environment, surrounded by really competent teammates and good DS and direction. And yeah, I just like started this amazing season where I ended up being the leader in almost every race because I'd really stepped up and was like the first race I did, I think I was 4th in Het Nieuwsblad. The next day I was 2nd in a sprint. And I think finished like nearly top 10 in like almost all the spring. So it was, I couldn't believe I was riding as well.
And these are all iconic races that you're doing that, a few years before you could never even dreamed of being in that front group at the end.
I was figuring out like how to get to the front of the peloton and like not really understanding what's going on. But just making those steps to being like, oh, I'm like really a contender here. So that was quite cool to have that experience.
So in a 4-year period, your identity went from someone who thought about the Olympics to someone who knows they're on the Olympic path, to watching these races on TV, to being in these races and being on TV. Mm-hmm. Underneath, there must have been some changes in your day-to-day training in what we heard earlier as world-class habits or world-class behaviors. What were some of those things that happened like between 2012 and 2016 that you were doing on the inside that led to this shift so that you're now a contender on the world stage and no longer thinking about the Olympics, but actually saying, like, I'm going there to compete?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a big change, well, just at the start, I was going to university I graduated in 2013. So I was balancing school and racing during those early years, which I think is possible, but it's challenging and you just make it work. And then kind of after that, I chose to focus fully in on racing. So I think like that extra focus probably helped me just like increase hours, and just I changed a bit my approach to training there. I think, even just like confidence wise, because I think the mental game is really big in sport and cycling especially. I think I did gain confidence over those years, and I was very deliberate in trying to build my own confidence. I don't think it comes naturally. So even like, throughout my whole career, I was like always being very deliberate to put myself in a state of feeling confident and backing myself. And I worked actually throughout my whole career. I think it's cool. I worked with the same person out of Manitoba. She's out of the sports center, Dr. Adrienne Leslie Toogood. She's amazing. If anyone needs a sports psychologist. Developing those mental skills, that self-belief, that confidence, increasing my training progressively. And then I think also that training and focusing in on more of bringing up my weaknesses to become more all-round. So like we mentioned, the time trial focus, the climbing focus, all of those things kind of came together.
Were you with the same coach, different coaches?
That was a big thing in 2016, I had to, like, one of the terms of the team was I had to switch to one of their coaches. So at the time, I was very nervous to do that. I had the same coach out of Manitoba, and then I had to make that switch like 6 months before the games, which, and like, if you worked with a coach before, it can take a little bit of time to get to know each other and like for them to understand you as a rider. So I was really fortunate that the change actually went quite well, and since they were integrated in the team, it helped with some aspects. But that was like a big unknown, was switching coaches in that year.
In an Olympic year.
Yeah. And was there, like, you talked about the difficulties in making that switch in the communication. Was it like different types of training? Was it just different types of communication? What were just some aspects of that?
I think both. The communication. So I knew our team had they called it our logbook. It's like an Excel document with all you had to fill it out every day, and just more people had access to it from the team. So like, say the DS could see it, and the coach and the performance team. So I think just having that integrated all together can be an advantage. And then the training itself, just a bit different approach to some intervals and things. I think too, training it keeps building on itself over years. So, and sometimes having like a new stimulus can be really good for a rider.
Right.
If you're doing the same intervals for years, suddenly having something different, you might respond to it really well.
Yes, very interesting. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so you're now at the front of these packs, front of these races, big iconic races in Europe. At what point is it like you've made the Olympic team?
Yeah, so I guess same as 2012, the selections were done in June, I think, end of May of that year. And still the last time, I didn't know that I'd made the team. Like, I knew that I had this amazing spring, but I also knew okay, we had some really amazing riders going for the spots, and Canada still really prioritized the time trial. And so I wasn't really sure how the decision was going to play out, especially for that. I think we had 3 spots, and then 2 did the TT and the road race, and then you'd have 1 just road spot. And then I found out in June that I had made the team. So that was the moment. And that was, a really, really cool experience to just actually, receive that letter and confirm okay, yes, I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you go to the Olympics, you're going to Rio, South America, mid-season, and how was that? How was your first Olympic experience?
Yeah, and it's good for people to understand because the teams the Olympics aren't their biggest focus, and they still expect you to race all the rest of the season. First I raced the Giro, and also you're very conscious, you're on the team, but if you injure yourself, you're not going to go.
Right.
So the whole Giro, I remember being pretty stressed not to crash because I wanted to go.
Yes.
And then I did Ride London. There was a WorldTour race, literally a few days before the Olympics. Then I flew from London to Rio, this crazy long flight. Had a few days there to recon the course, and just quite a cool experience. I think one of my favorite things was being in the athlete village, and as a cyclist, you don't often interact with people from other sports or even see them. So to be in that village with the best athletes in the whole world, seeing trying to guess what sport people do based on their body type or how muscular they are.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Just having this big spotlight on you for that week was quite a nice experience. Yeah.
And so the Olympic course wasn't maybe your ideal course that year, right? It was really, really hilly, but the actual race itself, how did that kind of unfold for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it was kind of an interesting course that, it had some cobbles in it near the start.
It had everything.
Rolly, and then, finished with quite a significant climb, and then technical descent back down. And yeah, I didn't know what to expect going into it. I had been like riding well, obviously, before. But I think, I don't know. I guess I learned a lot that year of like how different racing at an Olympic event felt compared to being at like a World Tour race or a normal race during the season. Because you have these dynamics going on of like the teams are all different sizes, and then the strongest team has the most riders. So I think, what is it, four? I think the most you can have is 4 spots, maybe 5. And then you have a lot of teams with like one rider. So it makes like the tactics really different from what you're used to. And like you have to really pick and choose your moments and your tactics that way. So I just remember, yeah, that race, like the Dutch were obviously the primary ones to watch. They had a super stacked team. I remember, yeah, personally, I didn't end up feeling the best on the day. I think I really struggled in the heat, and maybe just like, yeah, I felt like almost like a bit off with this dynamic I wasn't expecting. But yeah, I do remember it was quite a hard race. Yeah, we hit that climb, or there was an early move, hit that climb, exploded. That's where Annemiek rode away. That was kind of her big moment, like showing she changed as a rider, like to be, yeah, right away there. It was also that was the dramatic crash year.
Yes.
I'm sure everyone remembers. Maybe you also watched it.
Yeah, that's where Annemiek, she crashed on the descent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I rode past that, and I didn't know at the time what had happened. Just there was people flagging it, and
Right. She crashed, like it looked really, really bad on TV, but then she did come back from it and then had 4 or 5 years of dominance after that.
yeah, like absolute domination. So pretty impressive comeback on her part.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some dangerous, like the drainage ditches on that descent were a bit dangerous thinking back on it, but I stayed upright.
Yeah.
Kind of enjoyed the experience in the end. My parents came and watched the race, so I remember I got to hang out for a few days afterwards, see them. I got to watch a few different sports, like tennis, gymnastics, I think, just kind of experience some of the atmosphere. And then I really had to leave right away and go back to
Right.
racing.
Right. You just had a few days there and then you're back to the
Yeah.
World Tour peloton.
You still had a job.
Like some sports, like it's the end of their season and like they'll stay, and it's like I didn't do the opening or closing ceremonies or anything. Like
Right.
you're like, okay, I gotta go.
So
But enjoy.
yeah, so you get to the Olympics, which is this massive achievement. You race there, but you're thinking about maybe another Olympics, 2020 in Tokyo.
Yeah,
And
I think as soon as it happened, I'm like, oh, I'm already like, oh, I learned so much from this experience.
Exactly.
Like, I need to go to the Olympics. Yeah,
yeah.
already thinking of that next one.
Okay.
Mhm.
So what was that like? Obviously, we're zooming through many years of your career, but
Yeah.
are you thinking quite a bit about Tokyo? Like you want to get back there. You have this experience now of racing Olympics, and you see it's very different from your typical World Tour race because I have the team dynamics and the tactics. Take us through now. Like you're going towards 2020 in Tokyo, and then the pandemic hits. All of that, trying to get back to the Olympics, and you're one of Canada's best riders as you kind of 2017, 2018. You're up there. Trying to, and thinking, I guess, about another Olympics.
Yeah, no, and it was like a totally different approach and mindset, I think, after 2016, because like you said, I've now proven myself. I'm one of Canada's top riders. I'm doing all the biggest races in the world and performing there. And so then I think it's not about just making the team. It's like, how can I like go to the Olympics and perform?
Yes.
Because I know I can be there, but how can I be better once I'm there? And then I also still had this interest in time trialing because I didn't race it in. I didn't do the time trial in Rio, but I'm like, I really want to do the time trial in Tokyo. So how can I get that spot and focus in on that event? So that became a big focus for the next 4 years.
Yep.
And yeah, really dialing in my time trialing, which I kept becoming a lot stronger. Spent a lot of time on that bike. A highlight was definitely like I finished fourth and at World Championships by like a second. I pick up the podium.
Right.
And
What year was that? That was
2018.
2018? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
fourth.
really proud of that result.
Yeah, fourth at the World Championships time trial. Like, sprinter Leah, fourth at the World time trial.
Yeah.
Like, that was a shocker. Like, where did, I remember seeing that and I was like, where did that come from? And you're a second off the podium. And, that was a key stepping stone, or key accomplishment. And what are some things that led you to that? I mean, obviously, like sometimes it's just on the day, everything comes together. But what were some of the things that you did that you think contributed to that, like, crazy, incredible performance on the time trial?
Yeah. I think accumulation of things, like I think that years of focus specifically on the event and riding the bike, doing the work. I think we're going to talk more about team time trialing later, but I do think doing a lot of work with team time trialing actually increased my individual time trial performance because the training is so hard. And then just like this crazy focus and preparation for that event. Like I remember on the day, like I was so dialed in and like I was flying through the corners and I really felt like unstoppable. So
Wow.
that was all kind of came together on that day. Mm-hmm.
So I have a question that comes from, I think everyone's always interested in the Olympics, and we see Olympians in the same sort of pool, but it is very different for some athletes than it is for others. So if I think about runners, for example, the Olympics is the thing. In the 4 years in between, you're training with the Olympics in mind. As a cyclist, however, you're a professional cyclist on a professional team, and the goals in between are huge. And the Olympics in those 4 years, it's for sure in the back of your mind. But you also have to perform for your team, and you have a coach who's trying to get the best out of you every year. So what was it like in those 4 years to be balancing those Olympic goals with those professional goals while you were racing with Sunweb?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's can be a challenge. It's so different from those sports where you are just training and have that one single focus. I think, like you try to align the goals as best as possible. And I think that they still work together because like your pro team wants you to have the best season possible and race and achieve results. And that is aligned with the Olympic goal of, the best riders will perform there, the best riders make the teams. Your countries are also concerned because you need to qualify your country's spots. So they care about your ranking in those years leading up to the games. So that's also in the back of your mind. But it's challenging because you're on a team, unless you're on a team that's based in your country and you only race with Canadians, you can have like that goal. But normally you're on a team with a lot of people from different countries and everyone has, personal goals and team goals. So it's just doing your best to make them work together. But I think still having that ultimate goal of being the best cyclist possible fits with both kind of goals.
Okay. And then now you've just had that incredible accomplishment on the road in the time trial. You really progressed. You're starting to think about Japan, Tokyo. It's the 2019 season leading into 2020, and then the pandemic hit. Like just the we haven't really talked to anyone about that phase where everything's going normal and then all of a sudden everything changes, and how you're trying to manage that as racing stops for a period of time, the Olympics get postponed, just the psychology of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a crazy time, I'm sure, for everybody. I was in an interesting position with the Olympics because that year they changed the selection policy. And so they actually wanted to select the team earlier so that you had, instead of that spring being like peaking for the spring and that being super stressful, select your team further ahead the year before. And then you can properly, lead into the games. So I actually knew I'd made the team before everything shut down.
Okay.
But that wasn't the case for every team. But at least for Canada, we actually knew who the team was. So that took away a bit of stress. Like I knew I made the team. But I remember, we went into that 2020 season. I had started the season in Australia. Like those races had just happened. It felt really good. The team was on a roll. We won there. And then, we were literally driving to race in the Netherlands when everything like shut down and everything got canceled, and you remember. And then it was just chaos and like people figuring out what to do, and yeah, okay, the season's canceled or delayed. And then there was the whole question of like, okay, are the Olympics happening? Like, okay, no, they're also delayed. You're like, we don't know when are they gonna happen? Like, how do you prepare for this now? Yeah, and basically I ended up staying in the Netherlands for quite a while because of this. We didn't know. Like,
We didn't
okay,
know.
are we
Yeah.
start racing right away? It felt safer not to travel. Like, I'll just stay here. I ended up hanging out with Allison Jackson was teammates with me at the time, so it was like us two hanging out at the team houses. We spent most of COVID together, which was entertaining. If you're going to be stuck with one person, then she was a good person to
Allison
be stuck
Jackson would be a very good person to be stuck with. Yes.
with. Highly entertaining.
Yes.
Yeah, so we made the most of that situation. And then, yeah, it was a bit weird training because you didn't know what you were training for. We still trained a lot and we trained quite hard, but like with this unknown deadline of when you're going to restart. And then cycling was like very strange. Like we were one of the first sports, I think, in the whole world that came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we came back with Strade Bianchi in like August. So August 2020, like the world's so crazy. And we're like traveling to a bike race. And I felt quite conflicted during that time because like the rules are still so different in every single country. And I'm like, should we even be doing this? Like, why is sport getting this exception? So yeah, still don't know how I feel about that. But in the end, I think at least I don't know, we provided people with some entertainment or maybe some hope that things would eventually go back to normal.
It was so hopeful. I felt the same way.
Yeah, I was so conflicted. I'm like, I don't think we should be doing this, but I'm glad it brought you some hope.
My recollection was they smashed together like 10, 15 different races in like an 8-week period or something.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that because it was crazy for me. So like nobody's racing at all for like a couple of years in North America. I did the Spring Classics twice in like 6 months.
Right. Yeah. Because they did like Paris-Roubaix like in October, and they did all these Belgian races in October and November, and then boom, you do them again the next year in March and April.
Yeah. I'm like, I feel like I was just here. Like, I literally was just here. So that was like a lot. Yeah, and there wasn't much of a break or an off season there because he just like went straight and then racing got like, I don't know, everyone's like, oh, it could be the last race ever. We have to go all in. So just like the racing itself, which I think it like this also, you know, spurred this change we're seeing now even of the racing change, this dynamic change where like every race is all in. You know, there's no easy races. So
are you saying are you saying that's carried over now? That
I think so. I think that was the start of like the shift in the sport where you know, it's just, I mean, it's evolving over time, but it did really start in COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like watching pro racing, and now you see a lot more like behind the scenes video on social media. It's like every race, there is a massive corporate plan to win that race for that team, right? Like it's not like, hey, we're going to these 30 races and we hope to win, you know, 1 or 2 of them. It's like every race is like a corporate acquisition. Like everything is dialed in.
Yeah. And like maybe in the past, it's like, oh yeah, you can like train or like use some races to prep for the season. Like they're a bit easier, laid back, or ride into it. It's like, no, it's not like that anymore. You show up like in Australia and, you know, people are like peaking and it's going to be super hard. So yeah, just the level is very high at every race now.
And so Japan then did decide to host the Olympics in 2021. But if you like, Japan was like completely shut down. Like I felt like Japan was one of the most shut down countries. And there's still these ebbs and flows of the pandemic and so forth. Take us through that kind of part of the journey.
Yeah, I feel like that year there's still question marks around it. It's like, is it going to happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the country's still shut down. Like we haven't really addressed everything. You know, like vaccines were being rolled out, but everyone had different access to it. I remember that being like chaotic. And then, yeah, the rules are still different everywhere. You know, can we have this international event, have people all fly in from everywhere in the world to this country that's very much shut down
Yes.
and be successful? So, yeah, I remember a lot of question marks, definitely stressful. I remember, well, that whole year, I think I did like 1,000 PCR tests or something. Like that was a big
Wow.
requirement for all the tests. To be allowed to maybe travel or be allowed to start, like your whole team had to do testing every single time.
Wow.
And then if like one person, it was also the time too, like if your roommate tested positive, you also can't go because you went.
Right.
So I have one story. We were driving to Liège, Bastogne Liège. Maybe this was the spring of that year. And we hadn't like gotten our results back over, okay, we're driving to the start of the race. Get a phone call. They're like, Leah has a positive test. You have to go back.
Oh.
So my whole team, we're like in the bus. And the whole bus like goes to a roundabout, like turns around. We go back into quarantine. And like, I felt so awful.
Oh
I took
my.
the whole team out of the race. But then the worst part of this whole story, so yeah, I'm like devastated. And then in the end, it was like a false positive. Like I never got sick. So it was like crazy. But this wasn't the only example. There's lots of cases, you know, people stuck in hotel rooms or like their teams out of the race. Like, yeah, it's, I think we quickly forgot like how crazy that those few years were.
Yeah, you know, it brings back a lot of memories because even that Winter Olympics, I saw, you know, athletes would be quarantined in a hotel room for 3 weeks, but they're still training to get to the Winter Olympics indoors in a hotel room. But I mean, that's quite, I can't even imagine the agony. You're on the bus, you're driving to a race. Everyone, you're on the team bus and you're going to the race. And Liège-Bastogne-Liège is one of the top 5-6 races that you can do. And you would have had someone on the team. The team is thinking about trying to win that race or get someone on the podium. You're all on the bus. And it's not like 4 of you on the bus. It's the whole team, all the staff, and it's like someone gets a text message, oh, Leah's sick. and they go through a roundabout and they do the full roundabout and go back. I can't even believe how agonizing that, like, and that's the uncertainty. Like that was
time, like that just, you had to accept that. And you're like, well, yeah, I guess that's the way it is. That's the rule.
So you're going through that. The Japan Olympics, like I think even the country like voted like there was an opinion poll that we should not hold the Olympics. This is like 2 months before. You don't even know, like, is the Olympics going to be held? And even if they're held the day before or 2 days before, you have a positive and you can't go.
Yeah, like every day. So once we were on the ground in Japan, like we have to do the test before we can travel. Every day we were there, we had to test in the morning. And we're all staying. We actually didn't stay in the village. The road venue was a bit outside, so we're in a hotel. But yeah, every single morning we had to do a test, and you're like, yeah, I don't know. Like I might not race tomorrow if it just happens to be positive. And yeah, so that definitely added like just that big layer of uncertainty. And like, and there were people that got sick there, and we didn't race or had that same uncertainty. But yeah, like everyone in the whole world, like we were just trying to figure out the best way forward and how to make things work. In the end, yeah, I don't think, and nobody on this team got sick. We got to start the race. Yeah, I got to race the road race and the time trial there. I put a big focus into that. And then that was, yeah, for my Olympic journey, I think it was really helpful having done Rio and then going kind of knowing a bit more what I was getting into. And in Tokyo, just in terms of like tactics and what the race environment's like and venue. And like you saw in that race exemplified how crazy the Olympics can be tactics wise, because that was the total underdog win with Anna Kiesenhofer riding away.
Right. She broke away and everyone's thinking, well, she's going to get caught. And then she stays away and she wins. And even Annemiek thought she was going for the win and she was going for second.
Yeah. That's a big thing too. In the Olympics, you don't have radios.
Yes.
Olympics and
I was gonna say, like, what is that like to not have the radio after you've had the radio for 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, like radios, it gets you a lot of information. Honestly, sometimes they can be so annoying when they don't work, or like you say things and you thought you were clear, but the person's like, it's just garbled, whatever. So sometimes it's nice not having a radio, and then communication is just in person. But for sure, it can impact tactics because you're not getting any information from the car unless you physically go there. And I think, yeah, for the Dutch team, like it showed a lack of communication because it seemed like half the team knew the situation and half did not.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I remember like being on, there was a long climb on the first part of the course, and I saw the time gap, and it was, I don't know, 8 minutes or more. I'm like, we don't even give gaps like this in WorldTour races.
Yeah,
like,
yes.
This is weird. I'm like waiting for them to go, like, and everyone's looking at the Dutch team. They're super stacked. Favorites for the team, they're the ones who need to do something. And then, yeah, they just went, like, didn't know the situation and went way too late. And yeah, then that's how the underdog wins a race at the Olympics.
Are you getting the time gaps on a chalkboard?
Yeah. So you do need to be paying attention because it's like every once in a while a motorbike drives by with something squiggled on. Yeah. You don't quite know what it means or what.
Yeah.
Or you need to go talk to your DS back of the car.
Is that an 8? Is that an 8?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, how many riders?
That'd be an 8.
But I mean, you have to, like, that's part of racing. You need to be aware of the situation.
Yeah.
And then communicate with your teammates. So that was quite an interesting race. And then, I also raced the time trial there. And I actually was very happy with how both my preparation and then execution on the day. Like, I don't think I could have done more. I was, totally prepared for the course. I think I finished 12th in the end, not far from a top 10. And I think I rode a solid race, so can be proud of that one.
Yeah, and maybe take us through a little bit of details just to finish off your Olympic journey, because
Sure.
I think finishing 12th in the Olympic time trial, getting to the Olympics is like kind of like a dream that you don't believe totally. Then you're trying to get to the Olympics, but to finish at that level at the Olympics in the time trial, take us through that in a bit more detail.
So, well, the event itself was really cool. Like, I don't, if you watched it on TV, like the start finish was a race car track,
Yes.
the F1 track in Tokyo. So, I got to kind of start on this iconic venue. And then the course kind of looped around that area. It was like kind of a more hilly course, which for me is a bit better than just like straight flat. So I liked a little bit of climbing, a little bit of technical elements. We went on a bit. One of the road climbs was also on the TT course. I just remember starting the race. I had really dialed in my time trialing, so I had a very specific pacing plan, and I was using power, and I knew I'd broken down the course. Like, okay, this is my target for these sections. Here I can recover. Here I'm going to push more. And then I did have a radio for the time trial. You're allowed that. And so I had the DS coaching me through as well. And mostly I found it helpful, to get things like technical things coming up, or maybe time gaps if they're close, or just like reminders or encouragement. And I just remember like feeling really dialed, executing a good race. Finish coming in on the race car track. It can be really kind of weird to race on a race car track because the corners are so wide. So like you think you like need to take the apex, and you're like, oh, this is such a wide road to race on. It was just satisfied kind of coming in from that race. It was good.
Yeah, what a cool like Olympic journey, and somewhat improbable, the ups and downs, and then actually racing the time trial to that level of performance. This Pedalcast with Leah went very in-depth, and we'd love for you to continue listening in part 2 as Leah talks about the Team Time Trial World Championship and the effort to achieve that, her Tour de France podiums, and her new coaching career. Hey Pedalcast fans, you can now reach out to John and Steve through email. Our email is longhaul@umfm.com. longhall@umfm.com. So you can send us all your questions, all your compliments, and we might get to them on the Pedalcast. So thanks for listening, and reach out to let us know what you're thinking.
Thanks for listening to the Long Haul Pedalcast. Be sure to subscribe and keep listening to all of these incredible stories that will help inspire you to create your own long haul journey.